Let me start with a simple question. What scares you more? Something going wrong, or not knowing what's going to happen at all? Because if we're being honest, most of us can handle bad news. We can survive failure. We can adapt to loss. What really messes with us is uncertainty. That empty space where nothing is clear yet. No answer, no direction, no confirmation that things will be okay. That space is where fear lives. And the problem isn't that you feel this fear. The problem is that most of your decisions are quietly shaped by it without you realizing. We don't call it fear. We call it being realistic. We call it playing it safe. We call it waiting for the right time. But underneath all of that is the same thing, a deep discomfort with not knowing what comes next. Your brain is wired to hate the unknown, not because it's weak, not because you lack confidence, but because your brain evolved for survival, not happiness. Its job is to predict danger and keep you alive. So when it can't predict what's coming, it fills in the blanks with worst-case scenarios. That's why silence feels uncomfortable. That's why waiting feels painful. That's why uncertainty feels like pressure in your chest. The unknown feels dangerous even when nothing bad is actually happening. Think about how many times you felt anxious while nothing was actually going wrong. No problem had arrived yet. No mistake had been made. No loss had occurred. But your mind was already racing, already rehearsing disaster. That's the fear of the unknown at work. Your brain would rather deal with a known threat than an undefined one. At least with a known problem, it feels like there's something to respond to, something to fight or fix. Uncertainty offers no such comfort. It just sits there, quiet, open-ended, unresolved. And that drives people crazy. So what do? We rush. We make decisions too early just to escape the discomfort. We settle for answers instead of truth. We choose clarity over quality. We take action not because it's the right move, but because doing something feels better than sitting with not knowing. This is why people stay in bad jobs, why they stay in unhealthy relationships, why they repeat habits they've already outgrown. Not because those situations are good, but because they're familiar. Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar possibility. A job you hate is predictable. You know what tomorrow looks like. You know the stress, you know the routine. The unknown alternative, even if it could be better, feels terrifying because it has no shape yet. So your mind whispers, at least this is safe. But it's not safety, it's certainty. And certainty is not the same thing as security. The fear of the unknown doesn't just stop you from taking risks. It stops you from seeing clearly. When you're afraid of uncertainty, you start confusing motion with progress. You feel productive just because you're busy. You mistake action for control. You believe that if you keep moving, keep doing, keep reacting, then you're somehow managing the situation. But most of the time, you're not managing anything. You're just avoiding stillness. Think about waiting for a message that hasn't come yet. A reply, a result, a confirmation. Your phone is silent, but your mind is loud. You check your screen, you imagine reasons, you replay conversations, you create stories that have no evidence behind them. Nothing has happened, yet you're emotionally exhausted. That's because uncertainty activates the same threat systems in your brain as real danger. Your body doesn't know the difference between an actual threat and an imagined one, so it reacts as if something bad is already happening. Heart rate increases, muscles tense, focus narrows, judgment drops. And in that state, you don't make good decisions. You react. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people don't want to hear. The fear of the unknown is rarely about the future. It's about your relationship with control. The unknown reminds you that you don't have full control, and that's terrifying to the part of you that believes control equals safety. But real life doesn't work that way. Every meaningful change you've ever experienced started with uncertainty. Every step forward came with not knowing how it would turn out. Every upgrade in your life, new skill, new direction, new chapter, began with doubt. The irony is that the same uncertainty you fear is the doorway to growth. But you don't walk through that doorway by eliminating fear. You walk through it by changing how you relate to it. Most people think the goal is to feel confident before acting. That's backwards. Confidence is a byproduct of acting without certainty. It's built by surviving the unknown, not avoiding it. The people you admire aren't fearless. They're just more tolerant of uncertainty. They've learned how to sit in it without panicking, without rushing, without needing immediate answers. They understand something most people don't. The unknown is not an emergency. It's just space. And space feels dangerous when you're used to noise. Modern life trains you to avoid empty moments. Notifications, content, updates, constant input. Silence is treated like a problem that needs fixing. But silence isn't empty. It's uncomfortable because it gives your mind nowhere to hide. When you stop filling the space, your fears show up, your doubts show up, your insecurities speak louder. And instead of listening, most people immediately distract themselves. Scroll, act, decide, do something, anything. But clarity doesn't come from filling space. Clarity comes from staying in it long enough for the noise to settle. When you sit with uncertainty instead of fighting it, something interesting happens. At first, your mind panics. It throws worst-case scenarios at you. It demands action. It begs for certainty. If you don't react, if you don't run, if you just let it pass, your mind begins to calm down. And in that calmer state, you start seeing things more clearly. You realize which fears are real and which ones are imagined. You notice patterns you were too busy to see before. You recognize options you missed because you were rushing. This is where better decisions come from, not from confidence, not from certainty, but from clarity. And clarity requires space. So the next time you feel the fear of the unknown creeping in, don't immediately try to solve it. Don't rush to fill the gap. Don't mistake urgency for importance. Pause. Notice what you're actually afraid of. Ask yourself whether the fear is about a real threat or just discomfort with not knowing. Give yourself permission to not have the answer yet, because needing an answer immediately is often the very thing that leads you away from the right one. You don't need to conquer the unknown. You don't need to eliminate fear. You just need to stop letting discomfort make decisions for you. The unknown will always be there. It's part of being alive, but it doesn't have to control you. It doesn't have to rush you, and it doesn't have to keep you stuck. Sometimes, the most powerful move you can make is to stay still, to sit in uncertainty, to let the moment unfold without forcing it. That's not weakness. That's mastery.